teenagers are known for their innocence and drive for wisdom. However, this hasn't always been the case. Some young minds fell into capital crime as juveniles and were executed. Others were quite innocent, but nothing could defend them until decades later. Today, we will unveil teenagers sentenced to death row with their executions, final words, and last meals. George Stinney, Jr., State, South Carolina. Date of execution, June 16, 1944. George, 14 years old at the time, was wrongfully convicted and executed for the death of two young white girls in March 1944. These girls were Betty June Binnicker, an 11-year-old girl, and Mary Emma Thames, an 8-year-old girl. The act reportedly happened in his hometown of Alcaloo, South Carolina. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death on a single day in April 1944. By June 16th of the same year, he was executed by the electric chair. He was prepared for execution using a Bible as a booster seat because Stinney was too small for the chair. He was then restrained by his arms, legs, and body to the chair. An officer asked George if he had any last words to say before the execution took place, but he only shook his head and said, "No, sir." The executioner pulled a strap from the chair and placed it over George's mouth, causing him to break into tears. And he then placed the face mask over his face, which did not fit him as he continued sobbing. When the lethal electricity was applied, the mask covering slipped off, revealing tears streaming down Stinney's face. He was buried in an unmarked grave at the Calvary Baptist Church Cemetery in Lee County, South Carolina. Leonard Shockley, State, Maryland. Date of execution, April 10, 1959. Leonard Melvin Shockley was a juvenile executed in the United States on April 10, 1959, for a murder committed when he was under the age of 18. Shockley, a black male, was executed in Maryland in a gas chamber for the murder of shopkeeper Sarah Hearn on January 16, 1958. Shockley, then 16, was involved in the robbery of a small shop in Dorchester County, Maryland. He was accompanied by his older brother, 23-year-old Harold Edward Shockley. Hearn was found stabbed several times in the back and breast, and her throat sliced. Fortunately, an eyewitness identified the young culprits. Leonard was 17 years of age at the time of his execution, making him the last instance of a person being executed while still a juvenile in America. His brother was sentenced to life imprisonment but was eventually released. Willie Francis, State, Louisiana. Date of execution, May 9, 1947. Willie Francis was an American teenager known for surviving a failed execution by electrocution in the United States. He was a convicted juvenile sentenced to death at age 16 by the state of Louisiana in 1945 for the murder of Andrew Thomas, a pharmacy owner in St. Martinville who had once employed him. He was 17 when he survived the first attempt to execute him, as the chair malfunctioned. This happened on May 3, 1946. Witnesses reported hearing the teenager scream from behind the leather hood, "Take it off! Take it off! Let me breathe!" as the supposedly lethal surge of electricity was being applied. The portable electric chair, known as Gruesome Gertie, was found to have been improperly set up by an intoxicated prison guard, an inmate from the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The sheriff, E.L. Reesweber, was later quoted as saying, "This boy really got a shock when they turned that machine on." After an appeal of his case to the Supreme Court of the United States failed, he was executed in 1947 at age 18. He told reporter Elliot Chase a couple of days before the execution that he was going to meet the Lord with his Sunday pants and Sunday heart. Dalton Prejean, State, Louisiana. Date of execution, May 18, 1990. Dalton Prejean was one of the 22 people in the United States executed for crimes committed as a juvenile. He was tried, convicted, and executed in the electric chair in Louisiana for the murder of Louisiana State Police Trooper Donald Cleveland. At about 5 o'clock on July 2, 1977, Prejean, his brother Joseph, Michael George, and Michael Broussard left Rogers nightclub in Lafayette Parish. The four had spent the night drinking in various lounges in the vicinity. They left Rogers nightclub in a 1966 Chevrolet driven by Dalton, with his brother in the front seat and the other two in the back. The car's taillights were not working, and within a few hundred feet of the lounge, Trooper Donald Cleveland, who was on his way to work driving his police vehicle, signaled the Chevrolet to stop. Prejean and his brother attempted to switch places in the front seat because the defendant had been driving without a license. The trooper noticed the switch and ordered the occupants out of the car. He told Michael George and Michael Broussard to get back in and search Joseph Prejean's body. Back in the car, Dalton Prejean reacted to the troopers pushing Joseph against the car over Joseph's protest. "I don't like the way he's doing my brother." Dalton then took a .38 caliber revolver from under the car seat, got out of the car, and approached the officer with the gun hidden against his leg. As he neared the trooper, he fired without warning. Trooper Cleveland was struck by 2 bullets and died. Dalton and his companions fled the scene but were apprehended several hours later. On May 18, 1990, Prejean was executed in the electric chair at Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola. His last words were, "Nothing is going to be accomplished. I have peace with myself. I'd like to thank those who supported me all these years. I'd also like to thank my loved ones for being strong. My son will be a better person if he does not let something like this bring down his life. Keep strong, keep pushing, keep praying." They said it wasn't for revenge, but it was hard for me to understand. I hope they're happy. So I forfeit my life. I give my love to all. God bless, there was no record of a last meal. Robert Carter, State, Texas. Date of execution, May 18, 1998. Robert Anthony Carter was executed by lethal injection in Texas on May 18, 1998, for the 1981 murder of 18-year-old Sylvia Reyes during a robbery in Houston. He was 17 years old at the time of the crime. In his final statement, Carter expressed love and gratitude to those present. "I love all of you all. Thank you for caring so much about me. Keep the faith. I am going to a better place. I hope the victim's family will forgive me because I didn't mean to hurt no one or kill no one. I love you all." Charles Rumbaugh, State, Texas. Date of execution, September 11, 1985. Charles Rumbaugh, a teenager, was convicted of robbing and killing a jeweler in Amarillo. After being found guilty, he was executed by lethal injection in Texas. This marked the first execution in over 20 years for a crime committed by someone under 18. On April 4, 1975, Charles walked into a jewelry store owned by Michael Fiorello in Amarillo, pulled a pistol, and demanded money. He struggled with Michael and eventually shot him. Before his execution, his last words were, "DJ, Lori, Doctor. Wheat, about all I can say, is goodbye, and for all the rest of you, although you don't forgive me for my transgressions, I forgive yours against me. I am ready to begin my journey, and that's all I have to say." There was no record of a last meal. Gerald Michelle, State, Texas. Date of execution, October 22, 2001. Gerald Lee Mitchell was executed by lethal injection in Texas on October 22, 2001 for crimes he committed in 1985. At just 17, he lured Charles Marino and Kenneth Fleming with the promise of selling them marijuana. Instead, he forced them to drive to an empty house where he robbed and shot both men. Marino died from his injuries, but Fleming survived by pretending to be dead. Later that same day, Mitchell killed Hector Manguilla during a fight over a necklace. Mitchell requested an assorted bag of Jolly Rancher candies for his last meal. In his final statement, Mitchell expressed remorse, saying, "I am sorry for the pain. I am sorry for the life I took from you. I ask God for forgiveness, and I ask you for the same. He also addressed his family. To my family, I love every one of you. Be strong. Know my love is always with you, always. T.J. Jones. State, Texas. Date of execution, August 8, 2002. T.J. Jones was executed by lethal injection on August 8, 2002 in Huntsville, Texas, for the murder of 75-year-old Willard Lewis Davis during a carjacking. The crime took place on February 2, 1994, when Jones, who was 17 at the time, and 3 accomplices approached Davis as he was leaving his driveway in Longview, Texas. Jones ordered Davis out of his car, and when Davis complied, shot him in the head from a distance of 2 to 3 feet. The group then drove away in Davis's vehicle, but was caught shortly after crashing it. During his trial, Jones's defense highlighted his below-average intelligence and emotional immaturity, claiming he had the emotional capacity of a child aged 10 to 12. Nevertheless, the court deemed him competent and sentenced him to death. During his execution, Jones's last words were directed toward Davis's family. I regret the pain I've put you through, and I hope you can get over it someday. He also expressed love for his own family, saying, Mom and Dad, I love you. Take care. I'm ready. There was no record of a last meal. Shaka Sankofa. State, Texas. Date of execution, June 22, 2000. Shaka Sankofa was a death row inmate in Texas, sentenced to death at the age of 17 for murdering 53-year-old Bobby Grant Lambert in Houston on May 13, 1981. His execution was scheduled 5 times, once in 1987, 3 times in 1993, and again on January 11, 1999. Each time, a stay of execution was granted. He was finally executed by lethal injection on June 22, 2000 in Huntsville, Texas. Sankofa released a final statement in which he called his execution a legal lynching and genocide in America. He called his followers to take this down to the international court and file a lawsuit. He said his lynching will be avenged and the revolution will go on. Stephen Roach. State, Virginia. Date of execution, January 13, 2000. Stephen Todd Roach was convicted and executed for a violent crime that occurred in 1993 when he was only 17. He murdered his 70-year-old neighbor, Mary Ann Hughes, in Greene County, Virginia. Court records show that Roach broke into Hughes' home to rob her. During the burglary, he attacked her, tied her up, and shot her fatally. The motive seemed to be robbery and to prevent Hughes from being a witness. He fled the scene but was later caught and confessed to the crime. Although he was a minor at the time, he was tried as an adult and sentenced to death. On January 13, 2000, Stephen Roach was executed by lethal injection at the Greensville Correctional Center in Virginia. J. Pinkerton. State, Texas. Date of execution, May 15, 1986. J. Kelly Pinkerton, who was convicted of mutilating one woman and murdering another, bid farewell to his father before being executed by injection. This occurred 9 months after he narrowly avoided execution. He was pronounced dead a few hours after his mother Han delivered a letter from him to federal judges. His father, Gene, the only relative to witness the execution, gripped an aluminum rail in the death chamber a few feet from his son. Be strong for me, Pinkerton told his father. I want you to know that I'm at peace with myself and with my God. I talk to everybody on the phone. I got to talk to Mom. Say goodbye to Mom. Keep your spirits up for me. Then he chanted, I bear witness to Allah. I ask for your forgiveness. Bye, Jay, his father said. I love you, Dad, replied Pinkerton, who then said, I feel dizzy. I feel dizzy. He yawned, his eyes closed, and he was declared dead. Pinkerton, an apprentice meat cutter, was executed for raping and mutilating Sarah Dawn Lawrence in 1979 during a burglary of her Amarillo home when he was 17 years old. Mrs. Lawrence was stabbed more than 50 times and her throat was slashed. Johnny Garrett, State, Texas. Date of execution, February 11, 1992. Johnny Frank Garrett was accused of murdering a Catholic nun who lived across the street from him. The date of the murder was on the morning of October 31, 1981. Garrett was 17 at the time, which is equal to the age of majority for criminal responsibility in Texas. According to the prosecution, that morning, Garrett raped, strangled, and killed 76-year-old Sister Tadia Benz in the St. Francis Convent. On November 9, 1981, Garrett, who lived across the street from the convent, was arrested and charged with murder. Garrett was tried and convicted of the crime. He was held at Ellis Unit, north of Huntsville, Texas, which at the time held men on the state of Texas's death row. He was originally scheduled to be executed on January 6, 1992. However, after Pope John Paul II asked for clemency, Governor of Texas Ann Richards gave him a reprieve. After Richards's reprieve, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles held a hearing on whether Garrett should receive a commutation to life in prison, but a 17-1 vote retained the death sentence. He was ultimately executed at age 28 at Huntsville Unit on February 11, 1992, by lethal injection. His final meal request was ice cream. The TDCJ website stated that this offender declined to make a last statement. However, his last words, as reported by APB News, were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me. The rest of the world can kiss my ever-loving ass." Curtis and Danny Harris. State, Texas. Date of execution, July 1 and July 30, 1990. On December 11, 1978, brothers Curtis and Danny Harris and their friend James Manuel and Curtis's girlfriend Valerie Rencher set out to visit a friend in Bryan, Texas, only to find out she wasn't home. Frustrated, their car broke down, and they vented their anger by tearing up the interior. They decided to walk down Sandy Point Road to look for help. A man on his porch told them he had no cables to lend. Eventually, they managed to flag down Timothy Merca, a 27-year-old employee of Texas A&M, who was happy to assist. He had jumper cables in his truck. Unfortunately, after 30 minutes, the car still wouldn't start. Merca took back the cables and recommended someone who might help. This suggestion set off the brothers. In a fit of rage, Curtis grabbed a car jack and began to beat Merca to death while Danny held him down. After delivering 15 blows to the head, Merca was dead. The brothers then stole his wallet, truck, and shotgun, leaving his body in a ditch. Still filled with anger, they robbed a convenience store, taking cash from the register and a bottle of donations for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. The brothers were convicted and executed in July 1993. These were Danny's last words. "I would like to tell my family I love them very dearly, and I know they love me. I love all of the people who supported me all of these years. I would like to tell the Merca family I love them too. I plead with all the teenagers to stop the violence and to accept Jesus Christ and find victory. Today, I have victory in Christ, and I thank Jesus for taking my spirit into His precious hands. Thank you, Jesus." Frederick Lashley. State, Missouri. Date of execution, July 28, 1993. Frederick was found guilty of murdering his 55-year-old cousin and foster mother, Janie Tracy, who had a physical disability, during a robbery where he took just $15. At 17, he attacked Tracy in her St. Louis apartment on April 9, 1981, hitting her with a cast iron skillet and stabbing her, which led to her death. He was executed by lethal injection in Missouri on July 28, 1993. For this crime, Reuben Cantu. State, Texas. Date of execution, August 24, 1993. Reuben Montoya Cantu was an American convicted murderer who was executed for a murder committed when he was 17 years old. During the years following the conviction, the surviving victim, the co-defendant, the district attorney, and the jury forewoman made public statements that cast doubt on Cantu's guilty verdict. Shortly after being convicted by a jury of first-degree murder and sentenced, Cantu wrote a note to the people of San Antonio saying, "I have been framed in a capital murder case. I was framed because I shot an off-duty police officer named Joe De La Luz." On August 24, 1993, at the age of 26, Cantu died by lethal injection, becoming the fifth juvenile offender to be executed by Texas. His final request was for a piece of bubble gum, which was denied. When asked if he had a last statement, he said, "No, sir." Sean Sellers. State, Oklahoma. Date of execution: February 4, 1999. Sean Richard Sellers was an American serial killer, executed for a crime committed while under the age of 18. His case drew worldwide attention due to his age as well as his jailhouse conversion to Christianity and his claim that demonic possession made him innocent of his crimes. For his last meal, he had Chinese food, egg rolls, sweet and sour shrimp, and batter-fried shrimp. He began his final statement by addressing his step-siblings. "All the people that are hating me right now and are here waiting to see me die. When you wake up in the morning, you're not going to feel any different. You're going to hate me just as much tomorrow as tonight. When you wake up and nothing changes inside, reach out to God and He will be there for you. Reach out to God and He will heal you. Let Him touch your hearts. Don't hate all your lives. I love you all." Sellers sang modern Christian music in the final minutes before injection, then said loudly, "Here I come, Father. I'm coming home." He then turned to the warden. "Let's do it, Gary. Let's get it on." Sellers finally sang his last words. "Set my spirit free that I might praise Thee. Set my spirit free that I might worship Thee." Napoleon Beasley. State, Texas. Date of execution, May 28, 2002. Napoleon Beasley was a convicted murderer executed by lethal injection by the state of Texas for the murder of 63-year-old businessman John Luddig in 1994. His last words were, "The act I committed to put me here was not just heinous, it was senseless. But the person that committed that act is no longer here. I am. I'm saddened by what is happening here tonight. I'm not only saddened, but disappointed that a system that is supposed to protect and uphold what is just and right can be so much like me when I made the same shameful mistake." Scott Allen Hayne. State, Oklahoma. Date of execution, April 3, 2003. Scott Allen Hayne was the last person executed in the United States for crimes committed as a teenager. Oklahoma executed Hayne for a double murder kidnapping he committed when he was 17 years old. Hayne was born in Tulsa. As a teenager, he accumulated juvenile convictions for trespassing, theft, and unauthorized motor vehicle use. On October 6, 1987, Hayne and Robert Lambert carjacked an automobile in Tulsa that Michael Houghton and Laura Sanders occupied. Hayne and Lambert eventually stopped the car, robbed Houghton and Sanders, and placed them in the car's trunk. Then, Hayne set fire to the car, which resulted in Houghton and Sanders' deaths. He didn't eat a last meal or give a last word at his execution. If you like the way we create these videos and you want us to bring more cases like this to light, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives.